She has no idea we were there. Let's keep it that way. If she finds out, we are dead. She won't.
My husband confessed to arranging my death while he was standing 6 feet from my hospital bed. He did not know I was awake. He did not know my phone was recording. And he definitely did not know that the woman he had tried to bury was a military intelligence officer trained to listen. When everyone else believed the room was silent. My name is Major Claire Bennett. I was 37 years old, stationed near Washington, D.C., and married to a man named Daniel Mercer. Until the night someone forced my car off a mountain road in Virginia, I believed Daniel was the safest part of my life. I had survived 2 deployments overseas. I had walked away from a helicopter crash. I had spent years studying threats, patterns, and lies. But the betrayal that almost killed me did not come from an enemy across an ocean. It came from the man who kissed me goodbye in our kitchen. 3 days after the crash, I woke in a private hospital room with a fractured leg, 2 cracked ribs, and bruises covering half my face. I could not open my eyes at first. Heavy medication pulled at my mind, making every sound feel far away. Then I heard Daniel whisper, "She was never supposed to survive." Another man answered him. I recognized the voice immediately. It belonged to Daniel's younger brother, Evan. "Keep your voice down," Evan said. "The doctors say she could wake up any time." Daniel gave a bitter little laugh. "Look at her. She is not waking up tonight." I wanted to move. I wanted to open my eyes and demand an explanation. Training stopped me. Confusion is dangerous. Information is protection. So I stayed still and listened. "The police think she lost control," Evan said. "That is what you wanted." "What I wanted was a closed casket and the insurance money," Daniel replied. "Now we have questions. Hospital bills, and Claire's commanding officer walking around like she owns the place." My commanding officer was Colonel Rebecca Shaw. She had been my mentor for 9 years and had saved my career more than once. If Rebecca was nearby, I was not completely alone. Evan sounded frightened. "I did my part. I loosened the guardrail bolts where you told me. Your driver hit her car. Do not put all of this on me." For one terrible second, the machines beside my bed seemed louder. I worried the monitor would reveal my racing heart. Daniel had hired someone to hit my car. Evan had prepared the road. My accident had not been an accident at all. Then I remembered my phone. The night before the crash, I had activated a voice recording shortcut for an investigation at work. 3 presses on the side button would start recording, even while the screen was locked. When I woke briefly during the ambulance ride, I had felt the phone in the pocket of my torn coat. A nurse later placed it on the table beside my bed, within reach of my right hand. Before Daniel and Evan entered, I had pressed the button 3 times without knowing why. Instinct had done what my injured mind could not. Now every word was being saved. The door opened. Daniel's mother, Margaret Mercer, rushed into the room. Margaret was a wealthy widow who controlled a medical technology company called Mercer Vale. She had never liked my military career, but she had always acted as if she respected me. "What are you 2 doing in here?" she asked. Evan said nothing. Daniel tried to calm her. "Mom, you should be home." "I heard you in the hallway," Margaret said. Her voice shook. "Tell me I misunderstood." Silence followed. Then Margaret gasped. "Daniel, what did you do?" "I fixed a problem," he said coldly. "Your wife is not a problem. She is a human being. She was about to destroy everything." That sentence changed the shape of my fear. Daniel had not tried to kill me only for an insurance payment. There was something else, something he believed I had discovered. Margaret lowered her voice. "Does this have to do with the company?" "It has to do with survival," Daniel said. Claire found discrepancies in the veteran's rehabilitation contract. She started asking questions. If she reported what she found, federal investigators would freeze the company accounts. We would all lose everything. Not Claire, Margaret replied. You would lose everything. Daniel stepped closer to her. I heard the warning in his voice. Be careful, Mom. The door opened again before she could answer. Daniel suddenly became the perfect worried husband. Doctor, is she in pain? He asked loudly. I heard my physician check the machines. Daniel took my hand. His skin felt warm, familiar. I remembered that hand sliding a wedding ring onto my finger 7 years earlier. Claire, he whispered, putting on a performance for the doctor. Come back to me. Every part of me wanted to crush his fingers. Instead, I remained still. The doctor told them I needed quiet, and the room slowly emptied. Daniel leaned close before leaving. His lips brushed my forehead. I love you, he whispered. The moment the door closed, I opened my eyes. Colonel Rebecca Shaw was standing in the corner, behind the privacy curtain. She had heard everything. Her face was pale with anger, but her voice stayed calm. Do you have it? She asked. I reached for my phone and stopped the recording. Every word, I whispered. Rebecca looked toward the door. Then we have enough to arrest them. No, I said. Speaking hurt my ribs, but I forced the words out. We have enough to frighten them. We do not have the driver, the money trail, or proof of what Daniel stole from the federal contract. If they are arrested now, his lawyers will call this angry talk and claim the recording was misunderstood. Rebecca studied me. She knew that look in my eyes. What are you planning? I am going to let my husband believe he still has a chance to finish the job. Apartwo. Teach ESD. Skesti. The next morning, I pretended to wake for the first time. Daniel was sitting beside me with red eyes and unshaven cheeks. If I had not heard his confession, I would have believed he had spent 3 days praying for me. Claire, he said. Oh, thank God. I stared at him as if I were struggling to remember. Where am I? He called the nurse, then held my hand while the medical team checked me. I answered simple questions, but claimed I could not remember the crash or the hours before it. Daniel's relief lasted less than a second, but I saw it. Memory problems can happen after trauma, the doctor explained. Some memories may return, some may not. Daniel squeezed my fingers. None of that matters. You are alive. He was a gifted liar. That was the first fact I had to accept. The second was worse. He had probably been lying for years. When we met, Daniel was a charming financial consultant with a talent for making complicated numbers sound simple. I was a captain completing an assignment at the Pentagon. He said he admired my discipline. I admired his warmth. After years of living by schedules and security rules, his easy confidence felt like sunlight. We married after 18 months. His mother welcomed me into the Mercer family with a formal dinner at her estate outside Alexandria. Avon served as best man. They looked close, polished, and loyal. I never saw the cracks because Daniel taught me to look in the wrong direction. 2 years before my crash, Margaret made Daniel chief financial officer of Mercer Vale. The company produced advanced braces and mobility systems for injured service members. The Department of Defense awarded it at a major rehabilitation contract. Because I worked in military intelligence rather than procurement, I had no role in selecting the company. I kept a careful wall between my marriage and my duties. Then, a wounded sergeant named Luis Ortega contacted me. Luis had used one of Mercer Vale's powered knee braces after losing strength in his left leg. The device failed while he was walking down a flight of stairs. He broke his wrist and suffered another serious injury to his knee. He believed the company had installed cheaper control units than the contract required. I told him I could not investigate personally, but I could help him reach the Inspector General. Before I sent the referral, I checked whether his complaint matched any open security concern. That was when I found a strange code repeated across shipping records. MV9. The code appeared beside hundreds of devices, but it was not listed in the contract. When I casually asked Daniel what it meant, he smiled and said it was an internal warehouse label. The next day, Sergeant Ortega disappeared. His apartment was empty. His phone was disconnected. The complaint he had sent me vanished from a secure intake system. 48 hours later, someone tried to kill me. I had not connected those facts before the crash. Now they formed a line pointing straight at my husband. For the first week in the hospital, I played weak and confused. Daniel visited every morning. He brought flowers, spoke gently to the nurses, and answered calls in the hallway. Rebecca arranged for 2 military investigators to guard my floor without making their purpose obvious. She copied my recording onto a secure server and contacted Special Agent Naomi Price from the Defense Criminal Investigative Service. Naomi was careful and direct. She came into my room dressed as a physical therapist, so Daniel's private security team would not notice her. "The recording gives us probable cause," she told me. "But you were right about the larger case. We searched the public contract records. Mercer Vale billed the government for premium components, then bought lower-cost replacements through shell companies." "How much?" I asked. "At least $42 million. The number stunned me. And Sergeant Ortega. Still missing. We found evidence that he boarded a bus to Richmond under his own name. Then nothing. I looked down at the brace holding my shattered leg in place. One crash had turned every movement into a negotiation with pain. I imagined injured veterans depending on equipment Daniel knew could fail. His betrayal was no longer only personal. "I need access to my house," I said. Naomi shook her head. "Too dangerous. Daniel keeps a safe in his home office. He told me it contains family records. I think the real ledger may be there. Wick can seek a warrant. If a warrant reaches the wrong desk, he will know. Give me one night." Naomi did not like it. Rebecca liked it even less. But we needed proof that would survive Daniel's lawyers. And I was the only person who could enter the house without immediately exposing the investigation. 3 days later, the doctors discharged me. Daniel insisted on bringing me home himself. He had installed a hospital bed in our downstairs guest room and hired a private nurse named Tessa Ward. The moment I saw Tessa, something felt wrong. She was polite. Her credentials appeared perfect. But she watched me the way a guard watches a locked door. She asked exactly how much I remembered. She counted my pills twice and kept my phone on the far side of the room while I slept. That first night, she prepared a syringe that was not on my medication chart. "What is that?" I asked. "Something to help you rest." "I would rather take the tablets the hospital prescribed." Her smile tightened. "Mr. Mercer said you have trouble sleeping." Mr. Mercer is not my doctor." She put the syringe away. But I knew then that Daniel had placed her in the house for a reason. At 2 a.m, I heard her whispering on the back patio. "She refused it," Tessa said. "No, I cannot force her. You told me this would look natural." I lay in darkness, feeling the pieces locked together. Daniel was not waiting for me to die. He had already started his second attempt. Part Three Mendu. Case of PPR. The next morning, I told Daniel I trusted Tessa completely. He smiled over his coffee. "Good. She came highly recommended. I am lucky you take such good care of me." The words tasted like poison. Daniel kissed my hair and left for the office. Tessa locked the front door behind him. I waited until she went upstairs to shower, then removed a thin metal pin from the lining of my leg brace. Rebecca had hidden it there before I left the hospital. I used the pin to open the guest room window and passed my phone to Naomi, who was waiting behind the hedge. She replaced it with an identical device that transmitted every call and message to her team. From that moment, our house became a trap, but Daniel believed I was the one inside it. For 4 days, I watched and waited. Tessa continued offering me unapproved medication. I pretended to swallow it, then hid the pills beneath my tongue. Naomi collected them through the window. Laboratory tests found a powerful sedative that could slow breathing when mixed with my prescribed pain medicine. Still, we did not arrest Tessa. We needed her to lead us to Daniel's driver. On the 5th day, Margaret came to visit. She entered my room carrying white roses. Her hands trembled as she placed them on the table. "How much do you remember?" she asked. I gave her the same empty answer I had given Daniel. Not much. She looked toward the hallway, then closed the door. "Claire, if memories return, you must be careful who you tell." "Why?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Because my son is not the man you think he is." I considered playing confused, but Margaret had challenged Daniel in my hospital room. She might be frightened, but she was not innocent. I reached beneath my blanket and started the replacement phone's recorder. "What kind of man is he?" I asked. Margaret sat beside me. "After my husband died, Daniel became obsessed with proving he could run the company better than I could. He created shell suppliers and moved money through them. I found out last year." "Why did you not report him?" Shame crossed her face. "Because he was my son. Because I told myself I could quietly repair the damage. And because Daniel had documents showing that I approved the payments." "Did you?" "I signed blank authorization forms during my husband's illness. Daniel used them later. If the fraud became public, I thought I would go to prison too." Her fear had protected him. Her silence had paid for my broken bones. "What does MV9 mean?" I asked. Margaret's face changed. "Where did you hear that? Answer me." She lowered her voice. "Mercervale 9. It is a private storage site in West Virginia. Daniel keeps return devices and test records there. The board does not know it exists. Is Sergeant Luis Ortega there?" Margaret stood so quickly that her chair scraped the floor. "I do not know that name." Her fear told me she believed it was possible. Before leaving, she slipped a small brass key beneath my pillow. "This opens Daniel's safe," she whispered. I should have stopped him a long time ago. That night, Daniel announced he had to attend a meeting in Baltimore. Tessa settled into the living room and began drinking the wine I had encouraged her to open. At 10, I sent a prearranged signal to Naomi by switching my bedside lamp on and off twice. The power went out 30 seconds later. Tessa cursed and used her phone flashlight to check the breaker panel in the basement. Naomi's agents intercepted her there and kept her occupied without revealing themselves. I pulled myself into a wheelchair and crossed the dark house to Daniel's office. The brass key opened his safe. Inside were 3 passports, stacks of cash, and a black notebook. The notebook listed payments to shell companies, public officials, and a man identified only as RK. Beside 3 dates, Daniel had written the words, "Problem resolved." The last date was the night of my crash. I photographed every page. Then I found a flash drive taped beneath the safe's upper shelf. Footsteps sounded in the hallway. Tessa was coming back. I replaced the notebook, locked the safe, and rolled toward the door. The wheelchair struck the edge of Daniel's desk. A framed photograph fell to the carpet. There was no time to pick it up. I reached the guest room just as Tessa's flashlight swept across the hall. "Mrs. Mercer," she called. I climbed into bed, fighting the pain in my ribs. She entered seconds later. Her eyes moved from my face to the wheelchair. "Did you go somewhere?" "The power scared me," I said. "I tried to find you." She touched the wheels. One of them carried dust from Daniel's office rug. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then the lights returned. Tessa smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You should sleep," she said. "Tomorrow may be a difficult day." I did not understand what she meant until Naomi examined the flash drive. It contained security videos from Mercer Vale 9. In the newest clip, Sergeant Luis Ortega sat tied to a chair. The timestamp was less than 24 hours old. He was alive, and Daniel was planning to move him the next morning. Naomi obtained an emergency federal warrant. At dawn, agents raided the storage site. They rescued Luis from a locked medical testing room and arrested 2 guards. But the man who had driven the vehicle that hit me was gone. All he left behind was a photograph of Daniel, Ivan, and Tessa standing beside a black sport utility vehicle. On the back, someone had written a name: Ryan Kessler. RK, the man Daniel had paid to solve problems. Parfo UR. The trap 8T Galley, rescuing Luis should have ended the danger. Instead, it made Daniel desperate. The guards at Mercer Vale 9 refused to name him. They claimed they had held Luis because he was stealing company secrets. Daniel's lawyers prepared a story before the raid, even appeared in the news. Then Daniel found the fallen photograph in his office. He came into my room holding it by one corner. "Were you in my office last night?" he asked. I looked at him with practiced confusion. "I do not remember." "Think carefully." The power went out. I was frightened. His jaw tightened. "Did you open my safe?" "I do not know the combination." That answer was true, and he heard truth in my voice. But his suspicion did not disappear. He sat beside me and gently touched the bruising near my temple. "Sometimes trauma makes people imagine things," he said. "If you start remembering the crash, tell me before you tell anyone else." Of course. His hand slid down to my throat. His thumb rested over my pulse. "I could not bear to lose you again." I looked into the eyes of the man I had loved. There was no guilt in them, only calculation. That was the moment my heart stopped asking why. I no longer wanted an explanation. I wanted the truth made public. Naomi's team traced Ryan Kessler to a motel near Baltimore, but the room was empty. Inside, agents found burner phones and a printed invitation to Mercer Vale's annual Veterans Charity Gala. The event was 2 nights away. Daniel planned to announce a new $50 million rehabilitation initiative. Members of Congress, military leaders, investors, and reporters would attend. If he survived the evening without scandal, he could secure new financing and move stolen money overseas. Naomi wanted to arrest him before the gala. "We have the ledger photographs, Tessa's drugs, and the storage site," she said. "But we still cannot prove he ordered Kessler to hit me," I replied. "And Daniel will blame everything else on Ivan." That was his pattern. He built crimes with layers between himself and the damage. Ivan handled the road. Kessler handled the medication. Kessler handled the violence. Daniel stayed clean. So I offered him something he could not resist. I told him my memory had returned. That evening, I asked Tessa to help me dress. I chose the white military formal uniform I had planned to wear before the crash. My leg remained in a rigid brace, and makeup could not hide all the bruises on my face, but I wanted the room to see exactly what Daniel had done. When Daniel entered, he froze. "You cannot attend the gala like this," he said. "It honors injured service members." I think I fit the theme. "Your doctor said you need rest." My doctor said I could leave the house for a few hours. He forced a smile. Then I will stay beside you all night. Good, I said. There is something important I need to tell you there. His eyes narrowed. What is it? I leaned closer. I remember the black vehicle. The color drained from his face. What black vehicle? The one that hit me. I let the silence stretch. And I remember seeing the driver. Daniel left the room 5 minutes later and made a call from the garage. The replacement phone in his pocket transmitted it directly to Naomi. She remembers Kessler, he told Evan. We do it tonight. At the gala. Make it look like a medical complication. Ivan refused at first. Daniel reminded him that the loose guardrail bolts carried his fingerprints. Then Ivan went quiet. What do you need? He asked. We finally had the order. But Naomi heard something else in the call. Daniel told Evan that Kessler would be waiting in the hotel's service corridor. He was coming to the gala. The ballroom overlooked the Potomac River. Crystal lights hung above tables, filled with donors and officials. Cameras turned toward me when Daniel pushed my wheelchair through the entrance. He played the devoted husband, stopping to adjust my blanket and introducing me as his brave wife. People applauded. I smiled for every photograph. Margaret watched from the front table. She wore pearls and a white evening coat, just as she had in my hospital room. Guilt had aged her in a week. Even stood near the stage, gripping his phone. When our eyes met, he looked away. Tessa brought me a glass of water. Your medicine, she whispered, offering 2 tablets. I pretended to swallow them. Across the ballroom, Naomi gave me a small nod. Agents were positioned near every exit. Daniel took the stage at 9 o'clock. He spoke about sacrifice. He spoke about integrity. He promised that Mercer Vale would never abandon the men and women who had defended America. Listening to him was almost unbearable. Then he introduced me. My wife understands courage better than anyone I know, he said. Even after a terrible accident, she insisted on joining us tonight. The audience stood and applauded as I moved toward the stage on crutches. Every step hurt. I welcomed the pain because it kept me focused. Daniel kissed my cheek and handed me the microphone. Thank you, I began. 7 days ago. I believed my greatest challenge would be learning to walk again. The ballroom became quiet. But recovery is not only about repairing bone. Sometimes it is about accepting that the person holding your hand is the same person who pushed you toward the edge. Daniel's smile disappeared. A large screen behind us came to life. The recording from my hospital room began to play. Daniel's voice filled the ballroom. She was never supposed to survive, people gasped. Reporters lifted their cameras. Daniel reached for the microphone, but I stepped back. The recording continued. What I wanted was a closed casket and the insurance money. Daniel toward the control booth. Shut that off. No one moved. Then the screen showed the ledger pages, the shell companies, and the video of Louis bound inside the storage facility. Daniel looked at his mother. You gave her the key. Margaret stood. Her voice carried through the silent room. Yes, you stupid old woman. You just destroyed our family. No, she said. You did that when you tried to murder your wife. Daniel rushed toward me. Rebecca stepped between us, but he stopped before touching her. His eyes moved to the ballroom doors. Federal agents were entering. Then every light in the room went out. Someone screamed. A hand closed around my arm and dragged me toward the service corridor. It was Ryan Kessler. Père vie. Justice he has a voic. Kessler pressed something hard against my ribs and pulled me through the darkness. Move, he whispered. My injured leg barely supported me. I stumbled, and he tightened his grip. The emergency lights came on, painting the corridor red. Kessler wore a catering jacket, but I recognized him from the photograph. He was larger than I expected, with a scar beneath his left ear. "Daniel cannot save you," I said. "Daniel is saving himself. He plans to blame you." A Kessler pushed open a stairwell door. "Be quiet." We descended 1 level. Every step sent fire through my leg. At the bottom, Tessa waited beside a laundry cart. "What are you doing?" she asked. The plan was an overdose? Not this. "The plan changed," Kessler said. Her frightened eyes met mine. "You said no one would get hurt at the hotel." I almost laughed at the absurdity. She had been feeding me drugs for days, yet she still needed to believe she was not violent. "He is going to kill both of us," I told her. Kessler struck me across the face with the back of his hand. I fell against the wall. Tessa flinched. "Help me put her in the cart," he ordered. Tessa did not move. "Daniel promised to protect me," she said. Daniel promised everyone something. That sentence finally broke through her denial. Kessler stepped toward her. I drove the bottom of my crutch into the side of his knee. He shouted and turned on me. Tessa grabbed his arm. The weapon fell from his hand and slid across the floor. It was not a gun. It was a syringe. Kessler shoved Tessa into the laundry cart and reached for me. I swung the crutch again, but he caught it and pulled me forward. Then Avon appeared at the far end of the corridor. He held a pistol with both hands. "Let her go," he said. Kessler laughed. "You do not have the courage." Ivan's hands shook. Daniel said, "You were going to take Claire outside. He did not say you would kill Tessa too." "Daniel told me to remove every loose end. That includes you." For the first time, Evan understood his brother's complete plan. He had never been Daniel's partner. He had always been evidence Daniel intended to erase. Kessler lunged for the syringe. Evan fired once into the ceiling. Agents rushed into the corridor from both directions. Kessler dropped to his knees. Tessa raised her hands. Evan placed the pistol on the floor and began to cry. Naomi reached me first. "Are you injured?" "Nothing new," I said. But Daniel was gone. During the blackout, he had escaped through the hotel kitchen. Security video showed him entering the underground parking garage. His car was found near Reagan National Airport, but passenger records showed no flight under his name. For 12 hours, federal agents searched airports, train stations, and properties owned by Mercer Vale. I knew they were looking in the wrong places. Daniel did not run toward uncertainty. He ran toward money. The black notebook listed a shell company called Blue Harbor Consulting. Its registered address was a marina in Annapolis, Maryland. Daniel and I had kept a sailboat there during the first years of our marriage. He sold it, or told me he had. After becoming chief financial officer, Naomi sent a tactical team to the marina. They found Daniel aboard the same boat, preparing to cross the Chesapeake Bay. He carried $2 million in cash, 3 passports, and a satellite phone. He also carried a letter blaming every crime on Evan. Daniel was arrested before sunrise. The legal battle lasted 11 months. Once Tessa learned Daniel had ordered Kessler to kill her, she accepted a deal and described every attempt to drug me. Avon admitted loosening the guardrail and gave investigators access to encrypted messages. Kessler confessed to driving the vehicle that forced me off the road. He also revealed that Daniel had paid him to abduct Luis Ortega after Luis threatened to expose the defective braces. Margaret surrendered company records and testified before a federal grand jury. Her cooperation did not erase her silence, but it prevented Daniel from hiding behind the corporation. The evidence led to charges of attempted murder, kidnapping, conspiracy, wire fraud, theft of government funds, and obstruction of justice. Daniel still believed he could talk his way free. At trial, he wore a dark blue suit and looked directly at the jury. His attorneys described him as a businessman, trapped by reckless employees, and a bitter wife suffering from memory problems. Then I took the stand. I told the jury about the crash. I described waking to his voice beside my hospital bed. I explained why I had pretended not to remember and how his second plan unfolded inside our home. His attorney tried to make me angry. "Major Bennett, you wanted revenge against your husband, did you not?" I looked at Daniel before answering. "At first, yes." The attorney smiled as if I had handed him victory. "So this entire investigation was personal." "My pain was personal," I said. "The evidence was not." I pointed to the records showing millions of stolen dollars and hundreds of unsafe devices. Revenge would have been destroying Daniel in secret. Justice is letting everyone hear what he did and letting a jury decide what it means. The courtroom remained silent. Then the prosecutor played the hospital recording one final time. Daniel heard his own voice say that I was never supposed to survive. For the first time since the crash, he stopped looking confident. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on every major count. Daniel received a sentence that ensured he would spend most of his remaining life in federal prison. Kessler received 5 years. Avon received 12 after cooperating. Tessa received 8. Margaret was sentenced to probation and ordered to surrender control of Mercer Vale. The company entered federal oversight, recalled every defective device, and used seized assets to compensate injured veterans. Sergeant Luis Ortega recovered slowly. He walked into the courtroom on the final day with a properly built brace and sat beside me during sentencing. "You believed me," he said afterward. "You gave me the first piece of the truth," I replied. "My own recovery took longer than I expected. Bones heal in measurable stages. Trust does not. For months, I woke at the smallest sound. I checked doors twice. I studied every glass of water before drinking. I hated that Daniel's betrayal followed me into quiet rooms. Rebecca reminded me that survival was not the same as living. She persuaded me to speak with a trauma counselor. Slowly, I learned that accepting help did not make me less capable. It made me honest about what the crash had taken. 1 year after the gala, I returned to active duty in a new role overseeing threat analysis for military medical contracts. My limp never disappeared completely, but neither did I. On my first morning back, a small package waited on my desk. Inside was a white rose and a note from Louise. It read, "For the woman who listened." I placed the rose beside my computer and opened the first case file of the day. That afternoon, I received a letter from Daniel. He had written from prison 6 times, but I had never opened any of them. This one carried a message on the envelope. "You owe me the chance to explain." I sat alone for several minutes, holding the letter. Once, I had wanted to understand how a man who said he loved me could arrange my death. I wanted to find the exact moment our marriage became a lie. But Daniel's reasons no longer mattered. Greed was not a mystery. Entitlement was not an explanation. And love that required my silence had never been love at all. I fed the unopened letter into the shredder. Then I deleted his prison contact from my approved list. People sometimes ask whether exposing Daniel gave me peace. The honest answer is no. Peace did not arrive with the verdict. It came in smaller moments. My first step without crutches. My first night without fear. The first time I trusted my own laughter again. Justice did not repair everything either. It could not return the years I had given Daniel or erase the scars on my leg. But justice did something revenge alone never could. It returned my voice. Daniel believed the crash would make me disappear. He believed money could turn people into tools, and silence could turn crimes into accidents. He thought my hospital bed was the end of my story. He was wrong. That bed was where I stopped being his victim and became the witness who brought down everything he had built. My husband once whispered that I was never supposed to survive. Now he wakes every morning behind a locked door, knowing that I did more than survive. I made sure the whole world heard him confess. Ian.